You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Radio Show, only on Financial News and Talk. Now live in studio, your host, local and national real estate expert and consumer advocate, Ron Siegel.
And hello again. Welcome to Ron Siegel Radio. This is the show with no real boundaries as we discuss current events, financial markets, politics, sports, even poking fun at the rest of the media. This is the show that connects the dots of confusion delivered by conflicting media reports. We connect the dots, the actions you can take, how your family or business can benefit from current events. Most of all, thank you for joining me. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day. We're a very focused show. We only chat about items that affect the roof over your head, your bank account, and anything I feel would benefit you. And let me remind you, if you ever have any more finance-related questions, I am the consumer advocate looking out for you. And you can reach out to me directly, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com. Just remember, that's the number you call anytime for assistance. When you call that number, it comes directly to me first. There are operators standing by.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
While I do have a great team when it comes to developing a financing plan, a plan to save you money, I personally work with you, even if you don't have any needs today. Save this number in your phone for future reference. 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. And yes, of course, we celebrate every day on Ron Siegel. There's always something great to celebrate when you're looking for it. There's a lot of folks out there that just never want to look for the good things that are going on. All they're selling is unhappiness. Let's take a look. Oh, you know something? I'm going to have to show this one to my grandson today. National Farm Animals Day. I don't even know if he's gone out to the farms. We'll have to check that out and see. Another library day. I think there's more library days than there are people going to the library anymore. Just throw that out there. Erase Self-Negativity Day. I'm gonna question this one. Josh, you must have looked at this and laughed. So it says National Siblings Day and has a picture of a dog in the middle. I'm just curious about that one right there. I don't know what that's all about. National Cinnamon Crescent Day. I guess it's not a croissant because it must be thicker or something. National Cinnamon Crescent Day. Beating anorexia, so I can go with that. I will get something to eat. Always looking for something to eat. But let's take a look and see what's going on in the markets today. I don't know if we want to look at what's going on in the markets today. It's been an ugly day in the markets, but it looks like if my screen has it didn't update. That's why I thought Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 500 points right now.
Ow!
S&P 500 is down 58. NASDAQ is down 175 points. Oil up a little bit, 85.36 a barrel. And the one that's going to get ugly, the 10-year Treasury, 4.51. It's all an ugly day on the markets. And thankfully, our lending team, our private clients, we locked everything yesterday because we're a little fearful that we might see this coming up. But the inflation data is what drove all of these problems today. And, no matter what the president says, it fascinates me because, when you get into these election seasons, everybody has an opinion. Every politician has an opinion. And the ironic part is they don't believe that you're going to believe what you see. They believe that what they say is all that matters. And it just fascinates me when I watch these things going on. I look and see that the price of everything that we come across is up. Transportation up 10.7%. Shelter, housing up 5.7%. Food up 2.2%. Energy up 2.1%. You look and you see the cost of motor vehicle insurance year over year up 22%.
Ow!
Think that has anything to do with all of the robberies and whatnot, the crime? Of course it does. So you look at all these different things, and then you look over and you say, okay, what's the one thing, especially in California, what's the one thing none of us can do without? I know. Well, when they talk about the inflation, they always talk about core CPI as if nobody needs to have food or energy. Think about that. I just don't understand when they talk about core CPI, they exclude food and energy. Well, California, we don't have any way of getting around here if it isn't for our gas prices. And if I look at gas, $5.38.5 a gallon right now. 1 month ago, $4.87. A year ago, $4.88. So we're up 50 cents a gallon over where we were a year ago. That's 10% inflation right there. Yet, when we hear from the administration, inflation is tame. Inflation is going down. So do I want to believe what I hear from the administration? Do I want to hear do I want to believe what the politicians have to say? Or do I want to believe the pump at the gas station when I go to see it? Would I want to believe the grocery store when I go to buy groceries? Do I want to believe the restaurants? Yes, and I am in shape. I know I tell you this all the time. I'm in perfect shape. Round is a shape, so that qualifies. So the whole issue here is, what is this going to do to the inflation numbers that came out this morning? What is that going to do? Where is it coming from? Well, one of the biggest issues in the inflation number, and I'll talk about this in depth in the Mortgage Minute, is shelter. Rent, 9.6% of shelter. Shelter accounts for over 45% of the CPI number, 45%. Now you look at rent is 5.7% year over year. Where's the biggest issues going to come from rent? And again, you can only hear this on Ron Siegel Radio. I listen to significant news analysis. MSNBC hee-haw. I don't listen to NBC because they never get it right. CNN, they lie. But I do get paid for private news sources, which is where we get a lot of the information that we share with you. When you talk about rent, which is 9.6% of core inflation, 9.6%, do you think illegal immigration has anything to do with that? Yeah, Joe, you're right. Okay, I blew that, Joe. Joe's telling me that the thing we can't live without is bacon. I can go without a lot of things. Bacon and vodka are two wine that I don't go without. So just throw that out there. So, Joe, yes, thank you. But do you think illegal immigration has anything to do with rising rent prices? Here's the issue. It's called supply and demand. We're not making any more units. We're bringing in more illegal immigration or immigration, either whatever you want to call it. But as long as we've got more people and not enough housing, well, you're going to end up seeing that those numbers are going to continue to go up. And we saw that in the inflation numbers this morning, where we got 5.7% year over year increase in rents. That's called, so again, supply and demand. There's not enough supply, and we keep increasing the demand. And so, well, where do you get the money for this, Ron? Well, guess what? Leisure and hospitality, that's what's been leading the job creation. Does it say that we're getting any more people, any more money in those areas? No. Because as we increase again, more supply, that means the wages in those areas are going to drop. Just the way it works, folks. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. When we come back, should I move with today's mortgage rates? Tax credits versus tax deductions. What's the difference? That's a big difference in those two. So we'll talk about those. How to buy down your mortgage interest, all that and more. Reach me anytime. Off air number 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com, Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you miss any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube, Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio, your home and mortgage connection.
Confused about the home buying process? Or curious how much you really know about buying a home? Take the first Home IQ quiz to test your understanding of buying a home. Created by the nonprofit First Home IQ, this 5-minute quiz will give you a score, what you missed, and why. Take the quiz in 5 minutes at rsrlinks.com/FHIQ and find out what you need to know about buying your first home. That's rsrlinks.com/FHIQ.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The Mortgage Minute today being brought to you by our friends at Geneva Financial. When you're ready for that next home loan, Geneva's got the programs and the products. You just need to make the call, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. And every day at this time, OBMMI, they provide the most comprehensive, accurate, timely, and interactive analysis of pricing ever conducted in the mortgage industry, calculated from actual locked rates with consumers across 35% of all mortgage transactions nationwide. They do not provide with us APR, points paid, points received. They only tell us what happened in the market. So that's what we look at because that's what they give us. Rates were ugly yesterday, and they're getting uglier today. I'm sorry, they were good yesterday. They're going to get ugly today. Conventional down 6.866. That's a 30-year fixed. Jumbo 30-year fixed down 7.107. FHA down 30 years 6.657. The best loan on the market, that's the 30-year VA loan, 6.478. And the USDA loan, rural areas, generally no down payment, 6.668. That was down as well. If you want our market commentary, we do put that out as early as the data allows each morning. rsrmarketminute.com, rsrmarketminute.com. Let's take a look and see what's going on in the markets today. That's really what's important now because after having coming out with that data this morning, the CPI data, the markets have not been very friendly. They have not liked that data. So let's see where we're standing as we speak right now. The S&P 500 is down. Looks like it's down about 60 points, 60.55. 10-year Treasury yield up 15 basis points, 4.511. If you're a conservative investor, you like that. If you're a senior, you like that. If you're thinking about buying a house, growing wealth, not good for you because it doesn't help the markets. The mortgage-backed security, the bond, is down 60 basis points. That means interest rates are up dramatically today. We told you about that a little bit earlier in the opening block. All about the CPI report. The March Consumer Price Index report showed that overall inflation rose 0.4% for the month, which was hotter than estimates of 0.3%. Year over year, inflation increased from 3.2 to 3.5, hotter than the 3.4 expected. Core rate, which strips out food and energy prices, increased by 0.4%, which was hotter than the 0.3% expected. Year over year, core CPI remained at 3.8, which was expected to decrease to 3.7. This is all rounding issues right there. Clearly seen inflation progress stall and even go in the wrong direction on the headline, thanks to things like oil prices. So let's take a look at the internals a little bit. Energy prices rose 1.1%, gasoline up 1.7%, which hurt the headline. Used car prices fell 1.1%, which didn't work against us. Motor vehicle insurance continues to rise and add to inflation, rising by 2.6%, while motor vehicle repairs rose 1.7%. Apparel also caused the index to rise for the second month in a row. Shelter costs make up 45% of the core index, rose 0.4%. Shelter remained up 5.7% year over year, not making any progress. Rents rose 0.4% last month and are up 5.7% year over year, down from 5.8% in the previous report. Owner's equivalent rent, which tries to capture the increase in home ownership costs, rose 0.4%, is up 5.9% year over year, down from 6%. Apartment List sent out a note, quote, trends in the Apartment List Index signal that shelter CPI will continue to gradually fall in the months ahead. At the current pace, it is likely to end 2024 under 3.5%, which is consistent with pre-pandemic levels, unquote. And let's take a look at the math at that. We received data for the first 3 months of the year thus far, and shelter has risen by 1.5% over that period. That means it would have to only rise 2% over the remaining 9 months to get to 3.5. In order to do that, it would have to average 0.22% each month, but the figures we've been getting have been double that. Unless we see a drastic change in the monthly readings, it's going to be very hard to get there. As we've been saying, it's going to be hard for the Fed to get to their 2% target. Not going to happen. The last leg of progress will be tough and will take time. As we've gone over, likely be higher unemployment rate for the Fed to cut. That's what it's going to take. Looking at Fed futures, there's now only a 23% chance of a June rate cut. Now July is 47%. There are only 2 rate cuts this year is what these numbers are saying. Mortgage applications showed some interesting data this week, and the Mortgage Bankers Association released their mortgage application data for the week. They do that every Wednesday, showing that purchase application volume fell 5% last week and are now down 23% year over year. Refinances rose 10% last week and are up 4% from last year. Interest rates rose to 7% last week and are 3/4 higher than this time last year. Why do I find that also interesting? I'm going to tell you. That's the Mortgage Minute, brought to you by our friends at Geneva Financial. When you're ready for that next home loan, Geneva's got the programs and the products. You just need to make a call, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. 2 issues with why we're seeing mortgage refinances right now. One, people are starting to realize interest rates aren't going down dramatically anytime soon, but they need money to live because inflation is going up. Wages are not going up to keep, as much as people need, and it costs to live. Life happens. So with all that being said, what do we need to be thinking about? We need to be looking at how do we pay our bills? Well, we've been living off of credit cards. They're running out. What are we going to do? rsrdebtfree.com, rsrdebtfree.com. That's what we're going to have to be looking at, is how do we solve the problem? We've got a couple of options. One of the options is taking a look at doing a cash out refinance. Maybe you're needing to do some extra work around the house that's going to cost a bunch of money. Maybe you want to get rid of those 30% credit card bills, 25% credit card bill. I just saw the other day, the average credit card right now, credit card interest, 22.84%. 22.84%. Well, the cash out refinance, the first thing you got to look at your cash out refinance is what is your blended household interest rate? That's one of the things you need to look at. Then you need to look and say, okay, how much money am I going to save, dollars and cents, by doing the refinance? I'm not looking at interest rates because strategy beats rate always. One of the best loans that our friends at Geneva has is their Home Select product. It is not the cheapest product, but it saves people the most money and gets them out of debt the quickest. And most people don't understand that. They say, Ron, how can you have a higher interest rate and pay off quicker without having a higher payment? Strategy beats rate always. So I digress. Let's get back to why people are doing the refinancing. The refinancing is not because they want to go from a 3% to a 7.5% or 7% or whatever the number is. That's not the reason. The reason is they're looking and saying, okay, my household debt service is $5,000 a month, let's say. That would be your mortgage, your principal, interest, taxes, insurance, HOA. Okay, you're looking at that, but then you're also looking at what is the minimum payment or the payment you're making on your credit card bills, auto loans, student loans, unsecured debt, everything. All those debts are adding up. So say they add up to $5,000 a month. But now let's say and yes, I understand some of them are 2-year debt, some are 3 years, some are 5 years. There's different durations on every one of those. But it's still costing you $5,000 a month in order to make all your household payments. And again, I'm just throwing a number out. I'm throwing all kinds of numbers out because it's for educational purposes, telling you why strategy beats rate. Well, here's the issue. Now you start looking at it and you say, okay, I can get a new 30-year fixed rate mortgage, and let's just call it 7 or 8%. I don't know what your number is. But when you do all of that, you come out and you say, now I'm looking at about a $4,000 a month principal, interest, taxes, insurance. I just saved $1,000 a month by increasing my interest rate. But wait, we're going to take part of that money and apply it to principal every month because we want to keep retiring that mortgage debt. We don't want to take a 5-year car loan and make it into a 30-year home loan. What we're doing is we're going to use some of that money to buy down your principal. And you end up saying, okay, by doing that, I've seen it where you've taken a 30-year loan and paid it off in 17 years. Now, here's the issue. Here's the benefit. Take a look at the Home Select product, rsrhomeselect.com, rsrhomeselect.com. I go through and walk you through this, and we're going to do an in-depth program on this down the road. But here's the issue. It is proprietary. There are only 2 companies that I know of that do anything like this, and yes, Geneva Financial is one of them. But you take and you structure the Home Select, get rid of that loan, and I've seen it benefit people with loans as low as 3%. Yes, it benefits them even with loans as low as 3%. You still save money. How do you do it? Well, you're paying principal first. You're leaving whatever savings you have in there. It becomes a game for you. And yes, I have seen it where a 30-year loan that still had 25 years remaining paid off in 7 years, a little over 7 years. And again, you're not having to pay a lot of extra money. It's understanding the strategy. How do you get that strategy to work? That's our whole focus on everything. Strategy beats rate always. Strategy beats rate always. So yes, take a look at these things. I'm going to give you 2 different sites. rsrhomeselect.com. Josh has that on the screen if you're watching us on ronsiegelradio.tv, any of our socials, or the ABC News and Talk AM 1490 video feed. And then I also want you to take a look at rsr3pctloan.com. So PCT like for percent. rsr3pctloan.com. I show you in that video, in that series, in that demo, how a 3% loan will kill you if you don't have the right strategy. rsr3pctloan.com. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. When we come back, should I move with today's mortgage rates? Tax credits versus tax deductions. What's the difference? How to buy down your mortgage interest and more. Reach me anytime. Off-air number 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com, facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you miss any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube. Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Hey there, friends. Wondering if now is the right time to buy a home? Or are you waiting for a bunch of foreclosures? The facts speak loud and clear. Defaults and foreclosures are down. Sure, we might be headed towards a recession. But did you know interest rates typically drop and real estate values often go up during a recession? So what are you waiting for? Higher prices or higher payments? Don't navigate these waters alone. Connect with RonSiegelRadio.com today. That's RonSiegelRadio.com.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. Real-time real estate segment today being brought to you by rsrmoney.com, rsrmoney.com. Should I move with today's mortgage rates? When mortgage rates spiked over the last few years, some homeowners put their plans to move on pause. Maybe you did too because you want to sell and take on a higher mortgage rate, or you didn't want to sell and take on a higher mortgage rate for your next home. But is that still the right strategy for you? In today's market, data shows more homeowners are getting used to where rates are and think it may be time to move, as Mark Zandi, chief economist at Moody's Analytics, explains, quote, listings are up a bit as life events and job changes are putting increasing pressure on locked-in homeowners to sell their homes. Homeowners may also be slowly coming to realization that mortgage rates are not going back anywhere near the rate on their existing mortgage, unquote. Recent study from Bank of America sheds light on some of the things homeowners say that would make them sell, even with rates where they are right now. If you're watching us on RonSiegelRadio.tv, any of our socials, or the ABC News and Talk AM 1490, FM 98.1 video feed, you are seeing a chart. What would make homeowners sell? Job opportunity or relocation, 40%. Nicer neighborhood amenities, 40%. The need for a larger home or more rooms, 38%. Social community to be a part of, 32%. Desire to be adventurous and more to a new area, 28%. Move to a home with rental potential, 21%. Didn't say anything about saving any money or affordability. What would motivate you to move? Now you know why other people would move. Take a minute to think about what would make a move worth it for you. Is it time to take a chance and go for your dream job, even though it's not local? Are you looking for a neighborhood that has more to offer and a close-knit sense of community? Maybe you just need more space. You're looking for your next great adventure, or you want a house that opens up rental opportunities to pad your income. And here's something else to consider. Mortgage rates are still expected to go down over the course of the year. And once that happens, there's going to be a big rush of buyers jumping back into the market. While you could delay your plans until rates drop, you'll only have more competition with those buyers if you do. So does that mean it's worth it to move now, even with rates where they are? The answer is, it depends. You'll want to consider today's mortgage rates, where they're expected to go from here, and what would prompt you to want to make a change as you decide on your next steps. An expert can help with that. Bottom line, other homeowners are getting used to rates and deciding to move. Let's chat to go over what matters most to you and if it's time for you to jump back into the market. That's the Mortgage Minute, brought to you by our friends at Geneva Financial. When you're ready for that next home loan, Geneva has the programs and the products. You just need to make the call, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. And you know, the whole idea here is we don't know when interest rates are going to change. There's nobody that knows when interest rates are going to change. We started the year off, people were talking about, we're going to have 6 rate cuts this year. Now, today, some of the numbers are saying 2. Who knows? We do know for sure that on average over the last 50 years, interest rates have averaged about 7.1%. So are we very high right now? Higher than we've been. Millennials, they've never even seen rates like this, so they're not sure where we are, right? And we've talked about that. In fact, we're going to do a show with our millennial guest tomorrow, I think it is. So, yep, Josh tells me I'm right. So we're going to be talking about the millennial and the old man tomorrow. And again, a lot of the millennials, they just haven't seen this. So now that we're a year and a half into these rates, people are starting to say, well, maybe if I want a house, I don't know if they're going to go back down to 3 or 4. I doubt they will. But if they do, I can always restructure. If they don't, I can't restructure my life. But one thing we know we can do, Mortgage 101, brought to you by our friends. Who do we have for Mortgage 101 today, Josh? Do we have a sponsor for that one? Let's see if it comes across my screen. Brought to you by our friends at Geneva Financial. When you're ready for that next home loan, Geneva's got the programs and the products. You just need to make the call, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. How to buy down mortgage interest rates. If rising mortgage rates are keeping you from buying a home, there is a way to lower your mortgage costs, a buy down interest rate. With this method, you pay more at closing to lower your mortgage interest rate while it costs more upfront money. It can lead to greater savings over the life of the loan, but it's a more beneficial tactic if you plan to stay in the home for a while. The longer you keep the mortgage, the more you'll save by buying down the rate. While there are perks to having a lower mortgage rate, there are also factors to consider before buying down your interest rate. Let's chat about those. First off, what is buying down your interest rate? When you buy down your mortgage rate, you're going to pay extra money at closing point purchase. It's called points. Points are actually essentially lowering that rate. Different lenders have their own mortgage rate buy down programs, so there might be a slight difference in the calculation and loan terms. Make sure you check with anybody. Call us and we'll give you an idea about it as well. There are two ways to buy down a mortgage. Discount points refer to buying down your rate permanently, and a mortgage buy down does so temporarily. These two terms both refer to ways to buy down your rate and are often used interchangeably, but there are significant, important differences. The type of mortgage rate buy downs, again, two main types. As implied, the permanent buy down lasts for the life of the loan, while the temporary buy down is only for the first few years or less. With the permanent buy down, the lower rate you purchased with discount points when you first got the mortgage will last for the duration of the loan, as long as you don't refinance the mortgage or change terms. Permanent buy downs are usually purchased by the home buyer, but not necessarily. Most lenders will only allow you to buy down 1.5% is what I've seen significantly recently. That's when you get the seller to help. RSRPerfectOffer.com, RSRPerfectOffer.com. We've actually gone through a video showing you how to deal with that. RSRPerfectOffer.com. So the idea here is when you do the permanent buy down, that allows you to qualify for more because that's permanent payment. When you're looking at a temporary buy down, that's when the interest rates are lower for a set period of time. Basically, you're using money up front, it's set aside, and it makes offsets your payment. So you're not paying as much because you're using some of that set aside money. One of the big benefits of that one, and that's commonly when you hear a 3-2-1 buy down or a 2-1 buy down or a 1-0 buy down, that's what those are. Those are money that's set aside to bring down that interest rate. It helps your budget, but it doesn't necessarily, or it won't, help your qualification standards because it's temporary. Now, the other benefit here is if you do decide to refinance sooner than in the permanent, you're going to get that money back. It goes to as a principal reduction when you go to do that down the road when you go to refinance. If you believe that interest rates are going to drop dramatically, well, that might be the solution for you if it's a budget issue. But can you afford it if your payment goes back up and interest rates don't come down to where you can refinance? That's the big question. How much does it cost to buy down your interest rate? The cost to buy down your rate will vary based on the lender and your total loan amount, but you should plan to have at least several $1,000s set aside. Keep in mind, this money is in addition to any down payment required on your mortgage and will be paid at closing as part of your closing costs. In general, one discount point, 1%, equates to roughly 0.25% reduction in the mortgage rate. So let's say you're offered a $4,000 mortgage with a 7% rate. If you pay $4,000, which is 1% of the mortgage, to buy a discount point, it can reduce the mortgage rate to around 6.75. That means you're lowering your mortgage payment from an estimated $3,028 to $2,961, saving more than $67 a month, excluding the down payment, taxes, and other fees. Over a span of 30 years, you could save more than $24,000 with the lower mortgage rate. But your savings is based on how long you keep that loan, so it might be worth it if you plan to sell the house in a few years. In the case of a temporary buy-down, 3-2-1 savings only occurs in the early years. However, it could extend beyond the initial years if market rates are lower by the time the buy-down period ends. So that's kind of what I mentioned to you before. Got to really watch these things. There are all kinds of pros and cons to everything. So let's talk about that. Pros and cons of buying down your mortgage rate before paying more upfront to get a lower mortgage rate. Consider these advantages and disadvantages of mortgage rate buy-down. Pros. Your monthly mortgage payments will be lower. I have seen them dramatically lower. Again, if you do this following some of the programs and teachings that we share with you, and I think you can look at rsrbuydown.com, rsrbuydown.com. I think I've gone through and walked you through how this works. And we will show you, if you go into to the rsrbuydown.com, you can see it. But I've done a lot of these where we've shown people how they can drop 1.5%. So now if we go back to that scenario that we were talking about earlier, and you're dropping 1.5%, that's what, 6 times that number that we were talking about. So $144,000 saved over the life of the loan. That's dramatic numbers. And then it also helps from the standpoint of it allows you to qualify for more. Now, if you are the seller, well, maybe you just want to increase the purchase price to cover this. And we've got an appraisal gap program in case the appraisal doesn't come in. This is why I say strategy beats rate always. Strategy beats rate always. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate current events and the financial markets. When we come back, tax credits versus tax deductions, what's the difference? You can reach me anytime. Our off-air number, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com, facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you miss any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube. Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Is your budget getting blown up with high prices of gas and increased costs for other household needs? This is Ron Siegel, host of the daily home and finance radio program. Did you know if you have a low interest rate mortgage along with auto debt, credit card debt, or student loans, your family could potentially save $500 or more per month by restructuring these debts? If you'd like a free Borrow Smart analysis with our team, let's book an appointment to see how we might be able to relieve some stress. Schedule an appointment at rsrbsa.com. That's rsrbsa.com for your free Borrow Smart analysis. rsrbsa.com.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The Your Credit Matters segment today being brought to you by rsrnodebt.com, rsrnodebt.com. Tax credits versus tax deductions. What is the difference? When you file your federal and state tax returns, you probably look for ways to reduce the amount of money you owe. To maximize your savings, you need to know the difference between a tax credit versus a tax deduction. Both affect the amount of tax due, but they do so in different ways. Here's how to distinguish between the two. A tax credit is a tax incentive that allows you to subtract the amount of the tax of the credit from the tax amount you owe. For example, if you owe $2,000 in taxes and take a credit worth $1,000, the credit reduces your tax bill $1,000. The tax credit is dollar for dollar adjustment. In contrast, a tax deduction is an amount of money deducted from your income. When you take a deduction, it reduces your taxable income by the same amount of money. For example, the standard deduction allows you to deduct $14,600, $29,200 for married couples, from your adjusted gross income. Here's the main difference between the two. Tax credits reduce your tax bill directly as they offset your tax liability. Deductions don't reduce your taxes directly, but they lower your tax bill by reducing the amount of taxable income you have. Let's look at a refundable versus a non-refundable tax credit. Once you understand the difference between a tax credit versus a deduction, you also need to know the difference between refundable and non-refundable tax credits. The type of credit you apply makes a big difference in determining the size of your refund. If you owe less than the amount of the refundable credit, you get the difference back from the IRS or the state revenue agency. Assume you owe $500 and are eligible for a refundable credit worth $1,500. Not only would you wipe out the $500 tax bill, but it would also help you qualify for a $1,000 tax refund. With non-refundable credits, you don't get back the difference between the amount of credit and the amount of tax you owe. In the scenario above, the credit would reduce your bill to zero, but you lose out on the $1,000 as a refund. Common tax credits and deductions. So as we get ready to come up to the 15th of the month when we have to pay our bill, let's think about this before you prepare your tax return. Take time to learn about some of the most common tax credits and deductions for taxpayers in your situation. Many credits and deductions are based on your income, family size, and filing status. You may also qualify for credits and deductions based on college enrollment, self-employment, or charitable donations. Tax credits, Earned Income Tax Credit, EITC, is a federal tax credit for filers with low to moderate incomes. To qualify, you must have earned income, which is income you get from working. Dividends, bank interest, and other forms of passive income do not count as earned income. You must also earn less than $63,398 annually. The amount of the earned interest tax credit ranges from $600 to $7,430, depending upon how many children you have. The American Opportunity Tax Credit is a federal tax credit worth up to $2,500 a year. You may qualify if you have expenses related to your first 4 years of higher education, such as tuition, textbooks, and course fees. Additionally, the AOTC is partially refundable. If you owe zero, you can get back 40% of the remaining amount of the credit as a refund. For example, if you owe zero and are eligible for the $2,500 maximum, you can get a $1,000 refund when you file a tax return. To qualify for AOTC, you must have a modified adjusted gross income of no more than $80,000 per year. That's $160,000 if you're married and file a joint return. Lifetime Learning Credit is also educational credit, but it's a little more flexible than the AOTC. To claim this credit, you must meet the following requirements. You paid qualified expenses for higher education. You paid expenses for an eligible student enrolled at a college, trade school, university, or other educational institution that meets the requirements to participate in a federal student aid program. This is known as an eligible institution. The eligible student is you, your spouse, or dependent claimed on your tax return. Your modified adjustment gross income does not exceed $90,000 or $180,000 if you're married, file a joint tax return. Note that the amount of the credit is gradually reduced if you have a modified adjustable gross income between $80,000 and $90,000. If you're married and file a joint return, the phase out starts at $160,000. This credit's $2,000 per year. No limit to the number of times you can claim it. Child and dependent care credit. There's a lot of these different credits that are in here. I'm not going to go through all of them today, but I want you to know, if you want the full article, give me a call, 800-306-1990. Mortgage interest deduction, student loan interest deduction. There's a lot to it. Again, give me a call at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. And as always, I ask, set that first radio preset button to come back here and join Ron Siegel Radio, where we only speak about items affecting your house and your bank account. Thanks to all of our sponsors. A big thanks to Josh and Sean for engineering us today. And, of course, a special thanks to you for spending a little bit of your day with us. That's all for Ron Siegel Radio. Again, if you have any questions or to meet any of our guests, call me anytime. 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. And remember, make a lot of money so you can help a lot of people and have a lot of fun. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time on Ron Siegel Radio.